can tell me what class we are in? History, miss. Thank you, Annie. And who can tell me what we talked about last time? Yes, Pepi. In our last class, we talked about the new Bulgarian school, how literacy spread from just the church to new places called schools. There the scholars passed the knowledge from the books to the children and they become students. And why was it important for them to go to school? What would it help them with? Let's have Mirko answer this one. Because they need to know languages so they can sell and buy goods to develop professions. That's correct, Mirko. In order to develop trade and the so-called craftsmanship in the past and careers nowadays. What happened with the children of rich people, Adi? Rich people would send their kids to study in Greece. That's right. And in order to go far away from their families, who built the first Bulgarian school and where? Yes, Sami. The first Bulgarian school was built in Gabrovo by Vasil Aprilov. That's correct. And who can tell us something about Vasil Aprilov himself? Why him? What happened? Yes, Dani. Vasil Aprilov came from a rich family and studied in Russia. He was either spending money to build the school or send kids to study in Russia. Teachers were Bulgarians living in other countries who come back to teach. They taught children Greek, French, Russian, mathematics, etc. Good job, students! Now that we've seen how and why schools are developing, did something else change in the place where they would build these new schools? What developed in the outlooks of the village? Yes, Steffi, the villages become cities. Good job. And do you think the houses people lived in change? So far, we've seen that they used to build their own houses using mud and straw, as well as some brick houses. Did the houses change like the school, which became a big building? Maybe they also become bigger. They become bigger. Good. We'll see if that's right in a bit with the help of our good friend Robko. But before that, one last question. What do you think advanced after the schools? Yes? Trade, miss. All right, trade. What is trade? To sell things. Okay, and what did Bulgarians sell? And to whom? To other nations. In order to have trade, we need to have goods that are useful and necessary to other people. Today, there are a lot of goods, but that wasn't the case in the past. What goods do you think they had? Food, clothes, furniture? Yes, that's right. Food was made by farmers and clothes. What do we need to make them? Who makes them? In order to have clothes, we need fabric. And before it becomes fabric, we need threads to be woven and then design comes for the model. We need animals or plants for thread. Therefore, there must be breeders, landowners, weavers, and many other crafts. To find out more about this new period of our country called Bulgarian Revival, we will visit the Sofia Ethnographic Museum with the help of our friend the robot Robko, and throughout his eyes we will meet Totio, who will tell us and show us more about the revival. Hello Totio, today we are talking about the Bulgarian revival and we would like to help us by telling us how the life of Bulgarians changed during that time. Hello, my name is Totio and I am a tour guide at the National Ethnographic Museum Sofia. Today, in line with your lesson, we will talk about Bulgarian revival city and some characteristic features of the cities and the times then. The first exhibit in front of which I am standing is a very beautiful house from the village of Arbanasi, which is still a very famous ethnographic village in Bulgaria. What you may notice is that the house is very big. This is no accident, as during the Bulgarian revival this type of house became popular, because during this time many people in Bulgaria became wealthy. They become richer. Accordingly, owning such a house is symbol of status for the family's wealth. Until that moment, the houses were mostly between 2 and 3 rooms, i.e. between 2 and 3 premises they owned. While during the Bulgarian revival, we already have a rather imposing architecture. If we look for some logic in the architecture of the houses during that time, we can say that there were both such large houses and also 2-3 rooms houses. And for these houses that you have already learned about, which were made only of straw or wood, did not exist in Bulgaria, as the skill of building houses was greatly improved during this period. Something I didn't mention is that very often in these houses, in winter time, people lived in 2 or 3 rooms. Due to the fact that the remaining rooms would have to be heated and everyone tried to economize on the cost they would have for the heating in winter. Another interesting feature of these houses lies in the first floor that we see here. Now, I'm going to bring the camera down a little bit and it's going to show this first floor. As far as the houses we know today, on this first floor there would be a kitchen or there would be a basement where people could store their produce. During that time, however, even though these houses were owned by rich people, they looked after their animals there. Why did this happen? Because the space where they lived, i.e. first floor, is very close to where people lived, on the upper floor. Another fascinating feature is that in winter the heat from the animals would hit the second floor, and in this way, in modern terms, we can say that there is energy efficiency. This is a way to warm a space other than the hearth. So much for this house. Now I suggest we go to the next one. I take my joystick and direct the robot to go to the next exhibit. And now, which house are we going to to? Right now we are in front of house, again a rich man's house. We are moving on to the Rhodops in southern Bulgaria. An extremely beautiful house in the typical style for the area. We see this roof covering, which is spatial gourd covering. These are the gourds. They are thinly cut stones that are placed on the roof. And here you might notice that we don't just have 2 stories, we have 3 stories. The second and third floors are inhabited. When we talk about this area, houses had at least 2 floors and the ones of the rich have 3 floors. When we talk about the first floor, it is once again used for animals, warehouse or workshops, which I also mentioned in the previous stop. The next hall we will go to is connected with a very beautiful ceiling, which was indicative of the architecture of the Bulgarian revival, again in the houses of the wealthy. Let's go. I'm turning Kropko and the camera, so it's going to take us a while to get there. The next exhibit is related to the beautiful ceiling that graced the houses during the revival period. The hall in which I am located is part of the former place, a reception room, and for this reason, the then monarchs of Bulgaria chose it to display this type of elements, which again related to the revival architecture showing the Bulgarian development. I'll move the camera so that we can see the ceiling and the extremely beautiful carving on it. As a matter of fact, there is still a dispute about which school it is from, whether it is the Tele-visit school or the people of Koprivschica who made it, but there is also the Samokov school. What is impressive is the detailed craftsmanship. This was something extremely popular in houses during this time period. Today, this craft has disappeared because the need for such ceiling is not observed. Again, this was an indicator of the status of people during that time, extremely popular both for the Rhodop as well as other parts of Bulgaria. When we talk about the Bulgarian revival, we talk about getting rich, increasing capital, people who can afford such objects and interiors. Now, let's say a few words about the craft itself. Because in the time of the revival, several crafts developed very actively. They are the basis of this period. On the one hand, it is extremely strong craft production. What does crafts production mean? Today we are used to buying the things we consume and use from the store, manufactured in large factories whose located we don't know, while in the past, until 100 to 150 years ago, the objects that people used were produced by craftsmen and masters. Accordingly, every single thing that people had was produced either by one's family or a craftsman. In the revival, craftsmen began to receive many orders and important centers were formed. When we talk about wood carving in Bulgaria, one of these centers is the Samokov school, another is the Tete-visit school. There also are carpenters in Koprivschica. And additionally, in the land of today's North Macedonia, the Deber school was popular. It is important to say that these centers are located in the immediate vicinity or in the mountains themselves, which means that next to the places where these wood carving schools were developed, there is a lot of wood, which greatly facilitates the purpose of making various wooden products in this time. Now I suggest that we moved on the next hall, where I will show you other very interesting things. So now, children, have found out about wood carving. We will go to another craft, don't you? Another craft. Now you see in this showcase there are a few objects on display. What they have in common is that it is pottery production. The person who made them is called a potter. The word pot is still used, most likely you have heard it. In fact, these are the objects that are made from clay. Clay is extracted from the earth and shaped on a special potter's wheel. Why is this potter's wheel used? Because when the clay itself is placed on the spinning wheel for the potter, it is easier to form round shapes with the hands, such as almost all objects that are in the home. Yes, one can work without a potter's wheel, but it will take them much longer to make such a beautiful, detailed object. Pottery as a craft was popular long before the Bulgarian revival, but what is very important are its characteristic features for the time, such as new objects. For example, a krondir, that's the item you see here on the left. The krondir is smaller than the ones you see on the right. It is important to clarify what each object is for. These are pitchers. They are for carrying water, and the krondir, the object on the far left, is used to power alcoholic beverage. This is traditional ceramic vessel for wine or rakia. It became extremely popular during the revival. Perhaps it strikes you that it was made very richly. It is decorated. It is important to say that during the revival, many Bulgarians and the Bulgarian-speaking population began to live in the cities of the Bulgarian lands. Because until before the Bulgarian revival, the population in these cities were either Greeks or Turkish-speaking Ottomans. At the beginning of the 19th century, Bulgarians began to settle in the cities, and thus two very important schools were formed. Busmanci, 100 kilometers south of Sofia, and the other very important school that I'm sure you've seen item from already is the Trojan School. And now, here you can see three plates. The two on the top and bottom right are the work of Trojan craftsmen. Before the revival, there were craftsmen in Trojan who made ceramics, but during the revival, it became one of the most important centers in Bulgaria. It is precisely because of these events that the people from the villages come down to live in the cities. Now I'm going to rotate Rocco so that it can show you the plate on the top left. This is the so-called point pottery, which is extremely typical for Trojan. During the last few decades, it became popular in Bulgaria, but this style was popular in Trojan before it spread throughout the country. I now propose that we produce to our last hoe. Excuse me, Totio, but what is the plate under the plate with the dot? What is it? What does this plate look like to you? Just to move the robot. What this dotted pottery item was actually a colander. I'm sure we all love pasta, a lot of spaghetti, etc. At home we use similar objects. But today these colanders are made of store-bought metal. And at the time, people did not eat pasta in the Bulgarian lands, but they had to use a colander. The object you see here is again a clay item that has points that are perforated, and subsequently the piece was baked and used for the needs of training the food after washing. Thank you. I hope I answered your questions. Now we'll move on to our last room. Okay, and it will be for carpet making. As I said just now, here we will talk about carpet weaving. Up until the Bulgarian revival, people made carpets and fabrics only for themselves. It was women's work within the confines of the home. During the revival, when it comes to the sale of carpets, rugs, etc., men are also very actively involved in this process. How are carpets made? The main material, they are made of its sheep wool, which is shared, then washed to remove its fat, then split on this machine, here called a darak. Splitting is passing the wool through the needles of the darak and makes the wool is fluff up and be made into a thread. For this purpose, there are two other objects that can still be seen in many Bulgarian villages. Hurka, the long stick, and spindle. The unraveled wool, which is also called kadela, is put on this stick, and with spatial movements of the hands of the person, the thin and long thread is made. I have to say that there were people who did this thing all the time and won this thin thread on this shorter rod, which, as I said, is called a spindle. The spindle and the hurka were not only popular in Bulgaria. I'm sure you have all heard and know the tale of the Sleeping Beauty who impaled herself on spindle. The spindle represents this rod, which means that it was very sharp. But more importantly, the thread is wound around this rod. To make a carpet, we need another mechanism, another object, a device with which to make the carpet. How? How we will do it? Now, when I move our robot and we will go to a picture that shows exactly how loom weaving was done. Weaving is a verb using to compile the process of making a carpet, some fabric, and the machine on which it is woven called a loom. Here you can see a loom which was laid down and used for making thinner fabrics. Not so much for carpets, but in Bulgaria we have another type of loom. I will move our robot to the left again. I will try to fix it. It is now standing in front of loom, used for making rugs. It's standing upright because the fabric is in an upright position while being woven. The problem with that loom is that the fabric are made slowly, but it allows the threads to be made in such a way as to create an extremely beautiful piece. Now we are going to turn over here to show you the last thing we are going to see in this lesson. This is a very beautiful carpet from the Tete-visit region. Carpet production began to move outside of the home, i.e. we are starting to have many artisans who are engaged in the production of this type of carpets, i.e. they not only use them for their own home but also sell them. On the other hand, some very important areas in Bulgaria are beginning to be identified with these carpets. One region is Chiprovci. This carpet, although it is from the Tete-visit region, is indicative of the Chiprov influence over this type of carpet. And the other school was in Kotel. Kotel is located in Stara Planina. You probably already know between central and eastern Stara Planina. Something characteristics for the carpets of Chiprovci is the use of symbols that you see here. They were present before the Bulgarian revival, but during the revival, with the spread of this type of crafts, they began to become extremely popular in the centers. The symbols are the cord, which is a symbol of protection. The cord is a wing, a butterfly, and like a butterfly, the symbol means protection of the owner and the home. Here you can see another symbol. It is called makaza, a symbol for scissors. Just as the scissors have two blades, the meaning is that like these blades, which are in balance and equilibrium, the symbol brings balance and equilibrium to its holder. Now I will make a very brief summary. We went through 2, even 3 important trades. They are carpet weaving, pottery, wood carving, and little while ago we also talked about construction. These are all crafts that are very indicative of the time of the Bulgarian revival, which took place in the Bulgarian lands. Of course, I would be happy to continue discussing the revival and the objects that are characteristic of that time and in the future. Thank you. Do you have any questions? Bye. Thank you, Totio, and bye-bye. Now, let's see what you remembered from our tour guide Totio and the Bulgarian revival. Before we said goodbye, he records the crafts of wood carving, pottery, and carpet weaving. We also heard about carpets and how they are woven. Besides these crafts, what else evolved? At the beginning, we also saw some new houses. Construction mess. That's right, we now have new models, houses, 2 or 3 stories, height. What was the first floor for? Do you remember? To care for the animals. That's right, but it was also used for storing the goods produced owner of the house or the crafts they purchased. What and where are wood carving made? They are found in the mountains near the forest. Ceilings and statuettes are made from the wood. Good. What other crafts developed? Pottery for plates and utensils, weaving and carpet making. Well done, you did great. Next time we will see what else Robco has in store for us. Get ready for technology entrepreneurship, where we will make a model of a revival house.